I was gonna make a compilation about how racist Biden is. I was gonna show Biden saying all the slick shit about Obama, saying that you ain't black if you don't vote for him, how he was heavily fighting for segregation in schools in the 70s because he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle. And now all of a sudden he's for criminal justice reform when he's part of the reason that your mom, dad, uncles, cousins, and whoever the fuck is still in jail because of the 94 crime bill, which he helped put into legislation, helped contribute to mass incarceration. And then he successfully pandered to the black community just to get them to vote for him by selecting a vice president based solely on her race and gender and not on her qualifications. And Harris is the same person trying to fight for this criminal justice reform. But if you look back in history, she was fighting hard as shit to keep innocent people in jail and to keep nonviolent offenders in jail. And you can look that shit up. I don't get it. She was a prosecutor and attorney general for 27 years in California during the Watts riots, the Black Panther era, the Rodney King shooting, and she has done way more to keep you down than to lift you up. But I get it, people change, right? Except for the people that they put in jail who are still there. But I digress. Let's talk about taxes. I need to hit this workout first. Now you can find the Biden-Trump tax plan online. And if you're one of the people who are like, oh, it's just gonna affect the people who make $400K or more a year, go like this and just be quiet, okay? So let me hit you with some disclaimers first before y'all start talking shit. One, I'm anti-Trump and I'm anti-Biden. I voted for The Rock because both them niggas shouldn't have been there in the first place. But out of them two, I would want the person who lets me know how he feels about me and helps me get to where I need to be. Aside from the person who lies to me, tells me that he fucks with me, but he really doesn't. And he's just gonna make it harder for people like me and people in less fortunate situations to make a quality standard living. I'm also not an economist. So if I'm wrong, please let me know so I can fix myself. I also never made over $400K a year. Now, I've seen low six figures in my account before, and if you've made that much money, then you know, you're like, fuck man, how do I keep this shit? Because there's people I don't know who are trying to take my money, even though they didn't help me make the shit, and waste it on dumb shit that I don't care about. And those people is the government. If you never made that much money before, shit, work harder, I guess. I'll talk about those 400K earners at the end, because that's kind of the least important of all the different kinds of taxes out there that I'm gonna talk about. And I'll also let you know what you can do in this situation to protect yourself and your assets. Now, taxes is the number one thing, well, taxes is the only thing that's gonna affect 100% of the people in this country. Okay, and don't forget, the Boston Tea Party happened because of taxes. Unfair taxes. I'm not saying that shit gonna happen again, but you know, history repeats itself and all that good shit. Tax number one, capital gains tax and dividend tax. So if you own stocks and you own real estate, you should know about capital gains tax, dividend tax. Now, dividend tax is, you know, when you get dividends from the stocks, you're gonna have to pay taxes on that also. So basically when the taxes on these things go up, those rich people or people who understand how this shit works, they lock in profits so they don't have to pay as much in taxes. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a sell-off later this year because they won't have to pay the taxes that Biden imposes next year. So if there's a sell-off, that might be why. So if you own stocks and you get dividends, you're now gonna have to pay higher taxes than that. And it doesn't matter how much money you make, 400K or no. If you own stocks and you get dividends, you're gonna have to pay more taxes. Once you sell those stocks and you make any kind of gains, long-term capital gains, short-term capital gains, you're gonna have to pay more taxes in both of those. It doesn't matter. And this goes for anybody. Doesn't matter what tax bracket you are, that's happening. So that means stocks aren't gonna be worth as much, companies won't make as much money, which means you won't make as much money. So that's tax number one. The next tax is corporate tax. And corporate tax is the taxes that a business has to pay, like those big businesses. But I know you don't own a big business, you're not a business owner, you don't make that much money. It's not gonna affect you, right? And not really. So when a company has to pay more in taxes, what does that mean? They don't make as much money. So when a company doesn't make as much money, what does that mean? That means they raise the prices of their goods. They fire more employees. They don't hire as many employees. They don't expand as much. They contract. They don't, you understand what I'm trying to say? So the more taxes the business has to pay, the less value they give to the country, the less our country gives to the world, the less innovative we become as a country. You're kind of helping them because they're going to raise the prices of their goods. They're going to fire you and your parents. They're not going to hire anybody else. And the cycle continues. But you're going to be mad and ask the government for a handout and to raise taxes again. The more you raise taxes, the more you're not going to get hired. We're giving our competitors, the other countries, the competitive edge, and they will start to catch up. Even though they've been catching up, China is trying to become #1, and they might hit it. The way this country's going, we're going to have to learn Chinese soon because, yeah, these niggas is catching up. Is the most important tax, and it's the only tax that's definitely going to indirectly affect you. I'm going to lump in increasing minimum wage and adding regulations to this also because it all kind of goes together. There's about 30 million small businesses out there, and the small business technically is a business that has less than 500 employees. Now, 99.7% of all businesses, that's about 30 million businesses in the United States, is a small business. And small businesses employ 47% of the United States population. So 47% of y'all niggas work for small businesses, and this is going to affect y'all. So I know they want to raise the small business tax to try to take the money from the people who make the money, right? But most of the small businesses can't even afford to pay these taxes, to charge these higher salaries or pay these extra fees because most of the small businesses is the regular mom and pop donut shops. Like your parents own the little, your Ak owns the deli, your man's own the barbershop. Like all these small businesses, they can't afford to pay the higher taxes. They can't afford to pay the higher minimum wage, and they can't afford to pay these fees. So what does that mean? Well, 1, they go out of business. 2, they don't hire people because they can't hire people. They don't make no money. So when they get out of business, what happens? Well, now they can't get another job because the companies aren't hiring other people because they have to pay more in corporate tax. You're actually helping these rich people who y'all all hate because that gets rid of their competition without them doing anything. Their competition is just going out of business, so all the business is coming to them. So you're actually helping them and hurting yourself because now it's harder for you to open the business because of all the regulations, all the fees, all the money that you needed to get started. That wouldn't be the case if you didn't have all these increased regulations, fees, and taxes. But you voted for this. And now the last tax. And now the income tax. This is the one where it's only going to affect the people who make it 400K plus. Well, as you know, all the rich billionaires, they don't pay taxes anyway. And they don't make an income. So this income tax doesn't really affect them. The people who make 400K plus, either just the regular W-2 employees like your celebrities and like athletes and business people who just work the regular W-2 job. They just make more money than you. They're high income earners, so it's not really gonna affect much. They're just not gonna spend as much money. So now the companies who are raising their prices, who don't make as much money, now they make less money because people aren't consuming as much as they used to, but your income tax is going up also. It's not just gonna affect these guys, etc., etc. Now, some other taxes that are gonna be affected is like property taxes, right? So I own some property. So what happens when property taxes go up? Well, I have to pay more in property taxes. So what does that mean? That means I'm raising the rents. So I'm not paying those property taxes. You are. Moral of the story, the prices of goods are gonna go up now, and it's gonna be harder to find employment, find a good paying job because they're not gonna be hiring or paying as much because they're not making as much money. And this is usually what happens, right? All these regulations, higher taxes and stuff, you think it's good and you want it to affect the people who make the most money, but it doesn't really affect them much. So if you look at California and New York, I lived in both places, and it's like the rules are fucking retarded. Everything is regulated, the freedom, your freedom is just so limited. And then you move to places like Texas, and now I live in Atlanta, and everybody tries to migrate to these places, but they bring their ideals and stuff to these places and fuck it up there also. So you gotta understand what you're voting for You're voting for the regulations and the fees and the taxes and all that stuff. So you can't complain when your state is fucked up. New York and California, niggas is trying to get the fuck up out of there, all the rich people. And you need these people because they supply the jobs. They bring the innovation to the city. They make the standard of living where it is. So when these people leave and go other places, like, you're mad when they go to China and when Apple goes to China and to make your iPhone for fucking cheap because all the regulations and shit here is just crazy. So I can't blame them because I'll do the same shit. But what can you do in this situation to help protect yourself? Figure it the fuck out, because this is what you voted for. If you knew better, you do better. Don't let that go up your head. Peace.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.